So as you're looking at your screen here, you see what looks like some sort of like atom or molecule, and you're like, Mr. Canton, what is going on? This is not science class. You're right. This is global studies, and in global studies we do a lot of thinking, we do a lot of comparing, we do a lot of contrasting, and so what you are looking at, dear friends, is what is known as a double bubble map. And a double bubble map is used to compare and contrast two similar yet different things. And you might be sitting there going, well, can't I just use a Venn diagram to do that? You could, but you would be wrong. Because a double bubble map is the superior thinking tool. It is the thinking tool of geniuses around the world, and that's what we are, and that's what we aim to be here. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're not going to be doing Venn diagrams. We are going to be using a thinking map known as a double bubble map, and we're going to be using it ultimately to compare and contrast, this time Hinduism and Buddhism, but we could use it for a whole variety of things, and we're going to be using it as we continue on throughout the course here. And so what I just kind of want to show you is, excuse me, what this double bubble map is. And as you look on the screen there, you see kind of like this blue circle and this red circle, the smaller ones kind of towards the middle. Those are going to be the two items that we're going to compare and contrast. Then you've got those three white circles down the middle. Those are going to be characteristics that the two items have in common with one another. And then you've got the light blue and light red circles on the edges. Those are going to be distinguishing characteristics between the two. And so as we go ahead here and as we move ahead, I'll just kind of show you what I'm talking about. Now notice on this double bubble map that you have here, again, where it says item 1, that would be the first thing that you're going to compare, and then item 2 over here on the right hand side, that would be the second thing that you are going to compare in those blue and red circles. And then again, those central circles, those are going to be the things that your two items have in common with one another. And then on the edges, notice it says distinguishing characteristic A, distinguishing characteristic A, distinguishing characteristic B, distinguishing characteristic B, distinguishing characteristic C, distinguishing characteristic C. This is where a double bubble map really shines and is really superior to your standard Venn diagram, which is just kind of your low-level, smooth-brained, thinking man's graphic organizer. We got wrinkly brains, we're going to put more wrinkles in them. And so what I want to do is basically, I want to go through an example, right? Because it makes a lot more sense instead of just seeing like all of these words here about what goes in each circle. I want to actually do one together. And the first step in thinking with a double bubble map is to actually, well, create a double bubble map. So let's do that. And what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to have a sheet of paper. I would recommend a standard size sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, you know, notebook paper, whatever you got handy. And you're going to start by making 3 circles roughly in the middle. Now, I'm not super artistic. My handwriting and things like that is not super neat. Let me see if I can, let's see here if we can get that a little bit better. There we go. So you got your 3 circles there, and then we've got in kind of the 2 items that we're going to compare with one another. They would go in kind of our smaller circles here. And now notice we're just going to go ahead and connect the lines there like that, and like that. All right, so we're going to have item 1, item 2, and then these are going to be the 3 things that these 2 items have in common with one another. And then, of course, we need to have our distinguishing characteristic 1 and distinguishing characteristic 2. And so I'm just going to go ahead and put these out here on the sides. Now again, the slides that I have there, it is much prettier than the double bubble map that I have here, but we're not about beauty here. No, we're about smarts and intelligence, because that's where it's at and that's what really matters. If we're about beauty, you wouldn't be stuck with me. So let's take a look at this. Like I said, we've got our double bubble map. I've got one that we did by hand. We've got our digital version. And what I want to do now is I want to create, or compare rather, 2 similar yet different things. So let's go in one side, we're going to go apple, and in the other side, we're going to go orange. Apple and orange, because after all, as the expression goes, it's like comparing apples to oranges, which you can do. So let's figure out what would be some characteristics or features that these 2 lovely fruits have in common with one another. Well, let's start there. They are both fruit, right? Apple and orange, they are both a fruit. So we could put that in the middle. They are both round-ish. Round-ish. So that's something that they have in common with one another. And they both can be juiced. I think I prefer apple juice to orange juice. And I think I actually prefer apples to oranges, but I digress. So notice we've got our 2 items that we're comparing. We have an apple, we have an orange. characteristics that they have in common. They are fruit, they are round, and they can be juiced. You could have put, they both grow on trees. That could have been something that you could have put, right? Because those are different characteristics. They need to be plucked or picked. That's something you could have put. So it's really up to you in terms of like how you want to identify the characteristics they have in common. That's the easy part of the double bubble map, finding those similar characteristics. What is the challenging part is on the edges here where we talk about distinguishing characteristics, and we talk about how you've got distinguishing characteristic A and distinguishing characteristic A. Normally in a Venn diagram, you use the edges to put all the things that are different, and you just do kind of a brain vomit of all the things that are different. But when we come to a double bubble map, we're going to find things that are different, but in a category that they have in common with one another. So for example, when it comes to an apple, we could say that our first distinguishing characteristic, I'm just going to put it in parentheses down here, we could go with color, because both apples and oranges, they have a color. And so for apple, I'm going to put red and green. I know they've got some yellowish ones and things like that. And orange is the color as well, orange. Right, so notice our distinguishing characteristic, it's both color, but they are different. Red and green distinguishes an apple from orange in terms of their color, right? These are distinguishing characteristics between the two. Our next one we could go with is nutritional value. And I realize that's really hard to see because I have the handwriting of a small child. I apologize. I'm also the size of one. I apologize. I am who I am. Deal with it. So nutritional value. So for an apple, you could put fiber. Keeps you regular. They're high in fiber. And for an orange, you could put vitamin C. There we go, vitamin C, because that's kind of like the main nutritional value that each of them has. And so there again, we see these are kind of like distinguishing characteristics, right? We're talking nutritional value. Apples are high in fiber. Oranges are high in vitamin C. So these are differences between the two. Notice I'm not talking over here about fiber, and then for orange, I'm writing smells delicious, right? Because while it's true that an orange smells delicious compared to an apple, that's just an opinion, don't at me, you know, we're talking, in this case, about nutritional value. And then on top of that, after we get to that, I'm going to talk about basically method, and I'm going to put this out of the bubble here, of eating. And just so I know, and when you make your own double bubble map, you don't necessarily need to identify the distinguishing characteristic down below. You obviously need to include a distinguishing characteristic, but you could just write red and orange, fiber and vitamin C, like that would be fine. And then over here, method of eating, eat with peel or not. Some people prefer to peel their apple, but generally speaking, when you eat an apple, you just bite into that sucker and you eat the apple. And then generally speaking, with an orange, unless you're my daughter, you peel it first and you don't just like bite into it like some kind of like crazed fruit monster or something like that. But that is essentially what you would do with your double bubble map. So again, we've got our two items. We have our apple and our orange. We've got our characteristics they have in common. We have fruit, round, and can be juiced. And then we have our distinguishing characteristics. The color, red and green versus orange. Nutritional value, we have high in fiber versus vitamin C. And then of course over here, we talk about our method of eating. Can eat with the peel, generally, versus peeling first. And as we were to come over here and take a look at, you know, a very pretty double bubble map done here on the computer, and we can see again just kind of what that looks like in terms of a finished double bubble map. Now, I want to go back to kind of what the original one looks like. Notice again, we've got item 1, item 2. Characteristics they have in common go in the middle, and then distinguishing characteristics go along the edge. And there's where we see with our apple characteristics they have in common, fruit, round, juiced, and then characteristics they have in common we see there on the edge. And so again, what really elevates a double bubble map from a Venn diagram is the ability not so much to dump things into the middle. And by the way, I've only got 3 things they have in common with one another. We could absolutely, you know, add more things that they have in common. Pardon my, you know, terrible writing here. And we could absolutely add more distinguishing characteristics that they, you know, kind of share with one another. You know, there is no magic number, but 3, 3, and 3 seems to be kind of a nice fit, right? 3 things that they have in common, 3 distinguishing characteristics that they share, but you could absolutely load this up. Now, The key to it, though, again, is to match up these distinguishing characteristics. The stuff that they have in common, that's the easy part. But it's those distinguishing characteristics. And what you're going to ultimately end up doing here is you're going to be creating your own. So we created one together as an example, but you're going to be creating your own again. And you could use this set of Google Slides here, and you could click in the text boxes and you could type, and that would be fine and well. You could do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. What I would recommend doing is not typing it and not printing it, although you could do that. I'd recommend doing it by hand. I have no scientific research to support this, but there's something tells me that when you ink, you don't stink. That's right. When you ink it onto a page, you don't stink. It sticks to your memory. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels true to me. So that's what we're going to do. But you're going to be doing this on your own. And you're going to be recreating a double bubble map. So again, you're going to have, two things that we're going to compare, like say Hinduism and, I don't know, how about Buddhism? The two main religions that we've been talking about. All right, so those are going to be your two kind of core things that you're going to be comparing and contrasting. And then you're going to have the things in the middle. Now yours is probably going to be a little bit neater than mine, and you're going to probably adjust your circles. And in fact, rather than maybe writing your circles first and writing them super small like I did, which is not at all useful, learn from my mistakes, I would maybe write the words and then put the circles around them. But you are going to be creating your very own Hinduism and Buddhism double bubble map. That is going to be your task, and you're going to want to, in this case, utilize your Hinduism and Buddhism takeaways. That is going to be a huge advantage to you, so you should have those takeaways docs that you were doing over the past couple of days, and you're going to use those docs to create your Hinduism and Buddhism double bubble map. And then this Hinduism and Buddhism double bubble map is going to be something that we're going to be used for an upcoming activity and the next day, and you're going to be so happy that you have it, because when we get to that activity tomorrow, some of you who didn't do the double bubble map, you're going to be sitting there going, oh, me duele a mi cabeza. I wish I had a double bubble map. And those of you who had it, you're just going to be like, what a lovely day, because you've got your double bubble map. So anyway, that's what we got. That's how we make a double bubble map. Let me know if you've got any questions. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the world of thinking maps. Welcome to the world of superior thinking, where we judge those who just do simple smooth brain Venn diagrams, because we got the wrinkly brain double bubble. I hope you're doing well. See ya.